Yeah.
Any given Saturday. There's a reason they say that. Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, bringing you some of the best college football news, predictions, and analysis. Go follow us on Twitter at Gridiron Expert and go see everything we have to offer over at thegridironexpert.com, where you can sign up for our weekly newsletter and also sign up for our expert picks. The links for all of those things are in the description below, so do not miss out on any of the extra fun and any of the extra college football content. Well, guys, leading all the way up to Week 8, we said that it had some major shoes to fill. And that was because just last week in Week 7, we had what was by far the best week of college football in 2019. Well, Week 8 nearly met and surpassed those expectations. We saw exciting games that had major conference implications, games that had major college football playoff implications, and we saw our handful of big-time upsets, including 6 teams that went down in the top 25. Now, of course, half of those came from the 3 ranked versus ranked matchups we had. We'll address all those here in a second. But 3 of those came to unranked teams. Boise State fell in the nightcap to BYU out in Provo, a gutsy performance from both squads playing without their star quarterbacks. Vanderbilt somehow upset number 22 Missouri, a game we will certainly address later on. And then, of course, the biggest upset of the day, maybe once again the year, number 6 Wisconsin falling on the road 24-23 to Lovie Smith and the Illinois Fighting Illini. And that's where we kick off our Week 8 recap. The Badgers, their defense was by far the best in the nation, allowing us a little over 5 points per game. They had a huge date coming up against Ohio State in Week 9, and that could have been their downfall. The Badgers may have just overlooked the Fighting Illini in Champaign Saturday morning. They fell on a game-winning field goal as time expired after leading by 9 points with just 6 minutes left. Sure, Jonathan Taylor had a great game. Really, the Badgers altogether collectively did everything right that they had been doing in their previous games. Their games against Michigan, their games against weaker Big Ten opponents. At Northwestern, I mean, the guys that they had beaten before, they looked about the same. The difference in this one was Jack Cohn threw an interception with 2.5 minutes left that allowed Illinois to get in prime field goal position to win the game, and that's exactly what they did. Lovie Smith got his signature victory finally at Illinois. Wisconsin overlooked the Fighting Illini in preparation for the Ohio State game. That game kind of loses its luster in 2019 or in Week 9. Now that Minnesota has kind of taken control of the Western Division, still a big game for the Badgers, but their playoff hopes all but gone after losing to a very poor and undermanned Illinois team. But all the credit to the Fighting Illini. All the credit to Lovie Smith for getting the job done and getting their signature win and pulling off what may be one of the, or if not the, upset of the year. The second straight week, we have had a top 10 team go down to an unranked opponent. Last week it was South Carolina. This week it was Illinois. And we're going to kick things off again following that game with South Carolina, a team that many thought could maybe lightning strike twice. Could they pull off another major upset over their rival in Florida? The Gators traveled to Williams-Brice Stadium in Columbia in a very sloppy game, a big-time weather game. Tons of rain in this one, but Florida survived 38-27 in a game where the score looks a little lopsided than the game really was. Now, the Gators did score 21 straight points in a span of just 5 minutes and 52 seconds in the fourth quarter. And that, of course, was the difference maker. They were down 20-17 to the Gamecocks entering the fourth quarter. But Kyle Trask threw for a career-high 4 touchdowns in this one. The Florida defense stepped up and may have gotten a couple of, benefits from the referees. But that's not the reason South Carolina lost this game. Florida simply was just the better team in this one, got the job done, gets a bye week before a huge showdown against Georgia that could very well determine the SEC East. Later in the mid-afternoon, we had a huge one between number 12 Oregon and number 25 Washington. This game really huge, more so for Oregon than so for Washington, because unlike Oregon, Washington was kind of out of the college football playoff race, absolutely, and they really were kind of out of the Pac-12 title race. Oregon was still very much alive in both and desperately needed a win, not just to keep their college football playoff hopes alive, but maybe even the Pac-12 playoff hopes alive. And they did get the job done. They trailed by 14 points early in the third quarter. Battled all the way back with that potent offense with Justin Herbert. The defense stepped up big when they needed them the most. Scored a game-winning touchdown with a little over 5 minutes left. Beat the Huskies in Seattle 35-31. A huge win for Mario Cristobal and the Oregon Ducks. Now probably going to catapult maybe into the top 10 or at least stay put around number 12. Keeping their playoff hopes alive, keeping their Pac-12 title hopes alive. Their only threat really left this season going to be a potential date with Utah in the Pac-12 championship game. A game that really was not on many people's radar going into 2019, going into Week 8, was of course North Carolina taking on Virginia Tech. We didn't care much about this game. The only people that probably cared about this game were Tar Heel fans and Hokie fans. It ended up being one of the better games of Week 8. As Virginia Tech won 43-41 in not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, but 6 overtimes. This was the first time we got to see the new NCAA overtime rules where after the fourth overtime, teams had to start going for 2. Just a 2-point conversions. It wasn't going to be starting from the 25, now you're forced to go for 2. It was just you're getting the ball like a normal 2-point conversion, trying to speed up the process. And it did. Virginia Tech finally getting that win, finally getting into the end zone on that 2-point conversion, beating the Tar Heels by 2 points, who have come so close to winning games this season. Narrowly beat Clemson, narrowly beat Wake Forest, narrowly beat Virginia Tech. All had opportunities there, just weren't able to get the job done. But the Hokies prevail in the longest game in ACC history. If you haven't seen the highlights for that one, you need to make a point to go do it. Later on in the afternoon, Baylor making a major statement, showing that they are absolutely legit and not only Big 12 title contenders, but maybe even college football playoff dark horse. This was a game that I really didn't think Baylor was going to be able to win. They had thrilling wins over Iowa State and Texas Tech, a great road win at Kansas State. I just didn't think they were going to have enough to go to Boone Pickens Stadium, coming off a bye week for the Cowboys, and to beat Oklahoma State. But they did, and they did it convincingly, 45-27. Yes, Chuba Hubbard did rush for 171 yards against that Bears defense, but the passing game from Spencer Sanders was not enough. It didn't have any help for this Cowboys offense. It didn't have enough to help out Chuba Hubbard. Baylor ran away with it. Key stops, a scoop and score, big-time help from their running game, and Charlie Brewer throwing for 312 yards on just 13 completions. Baylor, Emperor of Rome, came out and said he thought Baylor should be in his top 10. After that performance, I wholeheartedly believe that they should at least be in the top 12. Watch out for Matt Rule and the Bears. They're here to crash the college football playoff party. One upset that we mentioned earlier and one that we're going to address again is Vanderbilt's win over Missouri. Guys, we said at the beginning of the video, any given Saturday. That they say that for a reason. They say to never overlook your opponent for a reason. Wisconsin may have done that. Missouri may have done that here. And that's just the beauty of college football. Because what happened in Nashville on Saturday afternoon makes absolutely no sense. Vanderbilt lost last week by 24 points to UNLV out of the Mountain West. UNLV, one of the worst teams in the Mountain West Conference, came to Nashville and beat Vanderbilt by 24. This following week, Missouri, the 22nd ranked team in the country, falls to the Commodores 21-14. That's just unbelievable. It doesn't make any sense, but it happened. And that's just the beauty of college football. That's why you can never overlook any opponent, never take anything for granted. Any given Saturday, anything can happen. And we saw a prime example of that happening in Nashville, maybe just enough to save Derek Mason's job. I thought he was for sure gone after that UNLV loss, but the defense stepped up, his forte, and may have just saved his job for a little while longer with that win over a ranked opponent, over a good Missouri team that just could not get anything going offensively. One of our game of the weeks that I thought many people were overlooking was Utah facing off against Arizona State, a top 20 showdown in Salt Lake City. And we said that Utah's defense had to step up big in this one, going up against not only one of the better running backs in the Pac-12 and Eno Benjamin, but Jaden Daniels, who has kind of emerged as a star in the Pac-12 and a true freshman quarterback. And Utah did just that. Oregon and Utah, the only two Pac-12 contenders and the only two contenders for the college football playoff out of the Pac-12. But the Utes, despite having 4 turnovers in this game, held Arizona State to just 136 total yards. They beat the Sun Devils 21-3, and once again kind of flexed their muscles defensively, which was one of the best in the Pac-12, one of the best in the nation, and once again look like they're poised to maybe go all the way to the Pac-12 title if they can get some help from others, as it's a 2-team race between the Utes and USC, and as we all know, USC owning the tiebreaker if it comes to that, as they beat Utah earlier this season. Now the question we have to keep asking ourselves, is Texas really back? Are the Longhorns back for sure? Because what happened in Austin Saturday night, there's no excuse for it. I would love to hear what Texas fans had to say after their 50-48 win over Kansas. The Mad Hatter and Les Miles looked like he was at it again. Looked like he had drawn up some scheme. They went for 2. They got it. They laid 48-47. And Texas once again got bailed out by Dicker the kicker, hitting a game-winning field goal as time expired to give Texas that crucial win. A couple years ago, they fell to Kansas and the sky was falling, and that was the end of the Charlie Strong era. I can't even imagine what could have happened if Texas had lost at home to a very undermanned Kansas team. But Texas, maybe a little hungover at that Oklahoma loss. Maybe so. No excuse for it. Shake it off. You got to bounce back. They didn't do that against Kansas. They should drop in the rankings. They have some major concerns going forward with the game against TCU on deck. And then finally, the biggest game, of course, of Week 8, Michigan traveling to Penn State, number 16 versus number 7. A game that we really expected Penn State to take easy care of. We knew Penn State was going to win it. We had a good feeling Penn State was going to win it. This was my game of the year back in the preseason. If you go back and watch, I said this was the game that I wanted to go to more than anything. This was the game that I was looking forward to more than maybe anything this season. Of course, leading up to it at least. And it lived up to the hype. Penn State jumped out to a 21-0 lead. Looked like they were going to run away with this game, much like they did 2 years ago, and much like Michigan has done at the Ann Arbor and the Big House back last year and then a few years ago as well. But Michigan battled back, made it a very respectable showing, and nearly tied the game at the end of the game, nearly tied it with about 2 minutes left. Penn State needing a red zone stop at the 3-yard line to survive, winning 28-21. So you think about it. Early second quarter, Penn State's up 21-0. After that, Michigan outscored them 21-7. And had they just caught that pass in the end zone, it wasn't broken up. Let's be honest. It wasn't broken up. It was just simply dropped. The pass was dropped in the end zone. Had they caught that, who knows what could have happened. Jim Harbaugh could have gotten his signature victory and kept their Big Ten and playoff hopes alive. But with that loss, Michigan has now lost 2 games this season, have yet to play Notre Dame, Michigan State, or Ohio State. Harbaugh may be on his way out despite the valiant effort and the Wolverines putting forth a big fight on the whiteout game in Happy Valley. But Penn State, college football playoff contenders, a huge signature win for James Franklin and his squad. Michigan on the decline. And a few other notes we want to address, not really talking about the games exactly, but we did see, unfortunately, Tua Tagovailoa go down with a big injury against Tennessee. The blowout win against the Volunteers for the Crimson Tide. Nick Saban saying that Tua only has a high ankle sprain, should only be out for a week or 2. Alabama, without him, will take easy care of Arkansas next week. They have a bye week in preparation for LSU. Hopefully, he will be back for that game. Appalachian State won their first ever game by a Sun Belt Conference team as a ranked team. So the first ranked team to win a game in the Sun Belt. Very impressive. The Mountaineers in at number 24 got their first win as a ranked team, got the Sun Belt's first win as a ranked team in their blowout win over Louisiana Monroe. And then finally, maybe my favorite part of Week 8. It wasn't the thriller at Happy Valley. It wasn't the upset in Champaign. It may have just been something as simple as a PAT. Casey O'Brien at Minnesota, a 4-time cancer survivor. 4 times, guys. We got to put that in perspective. 4-time cancer survivor makes his debut for the Minnesota Golden Gophers football team. Goes out there for multiple extra point attempts, every single one of them successful. He was just the holder, but he got to go out there. He got to play. PJ Fleck singing on the sideline, tears coming down his face, extremely emotional, got me emotional. I think if you watch that game, if you were just a fan of either team, Minnesota versus Rutgers, you couldn't help but see this heartwarming moment that once again shows that college football is just way, way more than a game. So congratulations to Casey O'Brien for making his debut. Congratulations to the Golden Gophers for sitting at 7-0 for the first time since 1960. But just a total heartwarming and beautiful moment that we witnessed in New Jersey on Saturday afternoon. Now, of course, I want to talk about our teams trending up and trending down. It's what we do every single week. We're going to go through them rather quickly. We say that every week, but we mean it this time. Teams trending up, Iowa State. The Cyclones started 2-2. A team that we thought was the third best team in the Big 12 behind Oklahoma and Texas. Didn't look like it early on with narrow victories over Northern Iowa and then a bad loss or a close loss to Iowa and a close loss to Baylor. But the Cyclones have bounced back, winning 3 straight games, all in Big 12 conference play, by an average of 19.7 points per game. They have a game against Oklahoma State coming up next week and then a bye week in preparation for a date in Norman against the Sooners. Don't count out the Cyclones just yet. They're sitting at 5-2, and they're definitely trending in the right direction after a slow and disappointing start. Right below them, all these teams I should mention are 5-2 right now. The Indiana Hoosiers sitting at 5-2. Who would have thunk it? Who would have thought Indiana would be at this point right now? A team that for the past few years has just needed one extra victory to go bowling. Multiple consecutive 5 and 7 years. They're sitting at 5-2 right now. Their only losses to Ohio State. I don't know who's going to beat them. And then a narrow loss to Michigan State. Their next 2 games are against Nebraska and Northwestern. Both very winnable games for the Hoosiers. There's a chance that Indiana could be sitting at 7-2 as we get into November. Certainly trending in the right direction and a gutsy and thrilling victory on the road against Maryland this weekend. And then finally, our last team trending up, we've got Pittsburgh, guys, a team that has really caught my eye and once again could be the favorite in the ACC Coastal right now. They won it last year as a 7-5 team, but right now they look like the real deal. After a 1-2 start, they have won 4 straight games, including that thriller over UCF, and now they have won back-to-back road games at Duke and at Syracuse. Neither of those teams bad at all. So impressive for what Pat Narduzzi and the Panthers are doing, and there's a very good chance that Pittsburgh could win out. The rest of their schedule is extremely favorable, and if they do, they're sitting at 10-2, absolutely ranked, and will probably win the ACC Coastal Division, although Virginia, if they were to win out or not slip up, would own the tiebreaker over the Panthers. So keep an eye on that Coastal race, but watch out for the Panthers, who are once again trending way in the right direction, and the schedule very, very favorable. Maybe the most favorable out of every team in the nation right now for the remainder of 2019. Coming over here, teams trending down. Of course, we try to mention teams trending up and trending down that aren't necessarily in the top 25, aren't necessarily getting a bunch of attention. And I'm sure some of these teams trending down wish they weren't getting the attention on our big board. But we'll start with Colorado, who's sitting at 3-1 right now, or was 3-1, with big wins over Nebraska and Arizona State. But since that fantastic start of the Mel Tucker era, they've lost their past 2 by a combined score of 86-13. Both of those coming to Oregon and Washington State. 86-13 in their past 2 games. It was a fantastic start. It was a great run. But once again, you're starting to see the growing pains of a brand new head coach, first-year head coach in Mel Tucker. Things look great off the bat, but now that you've hit the bulk of conference play, it's starting to get a little bit tougher for the Buffaloes. Maybe they can turn things around, but I don't think that's going to be the case. Expect a bigger year from Mel Tucker and the Buffaloes in 2020. Next, we've got Army. Guys, what a disappointment from the Knights this year. A team that many thought could contend for a New Year's Six bowl game, especially with the way they ended 2018, with all the hype and talent they had coming back in 2019. The Knights started 3-1 with that near upset over Michigan, but since then have lost their past 3 games. So they're sitting at 3-4 right now. They lost to Tulane, who's a very good team out of the American Athletic, but then they've lost to Western Kentucky and Georgia State. Both of those should have been games that Army could have and should have taken care of. They just were unable to do so. So an unfortunate start, an unfortunate year so far for Jeff Monken and his Army squad. 3-1 start. Now they're 3-4. Nowhere near going to a New Year's Six bowl game, and unfortunately will not be reaching double-digit wins in 2019, much like they've done the past few seasons. And then finally, we have TCU. For many, including myself, we thought this would be a major bounce-back year for Gary Patterson and the Horned Frogs. It just felt like that type of year. It felt like that type of year that TCU might be a not college football playoff, but a Big 12 title contender. Would bounce back, contend for 8, maybe 9, 10 wins. Well, that's not going to happen for the Horned Frogs. They started 2-0 with a great blowout win on the road against Purdue, but since that win, they have lost 3 of their past 4 games. And unfortunately for the Horned Frogs, it's not getting any easier as they have yet to play Texas, Oklahoma State, Baylor, and Oklahoma. So 4 very difficult games coming up for them. 2 of those, of course, being on the road. Gary Patterson and the Horned Frogs might just be lucky to clinch bowl eligibility, much like they did last season. So there you have it, guys. Of course, you can look at how our records did. 22-12 in Week 8 brings our grand total to 255-69. So 78.7%. And if you followed us for a while, you know we want to hit 76% or better. So we're almost 3% above what our benchmark is. We're in a pretty good spot entering Week 9. Against the spread, broke even. So if you took our money or if you took our bets, you just broke even this week. Not great, not bad, right in the middle. We'll take it. We want to get better every single week, and that's certainly our goal. And overall this season, we've been doing fairly well for ourselves, 57.3%, well above 500, which means you're making money. And if you go look around, it's still one of the better marks in the entire nation, better than the guys at Saturday Down South, CBS, ESPN, of course. You can find all those at the gridironexpert.com under the Expert Picks tab. But once again, not our best week, but we'll take a 500 week. Those are our records for Week 8. Those are our records overall. That's your madness for Week 8. Get ready for Week 9. We have tons of content coming out over the course of this week. Ranking analysis, game of the week analysis, Week 9 predictions. This week could be better than what we had last week in Week 7. I'm getting hyped for it, and you need to be getting hyped as well. So guys, thank you for watching. Go follow us on Twitter at Gridiron Expert. And of course, check out the official website, thegridironexpert.com. Sign up for the newsletter. Sign up for the Expert Picks. Everything's in the description below. And once again, thank you for watching. Please continue to like, comment, and subscribe. And we'll see you next time on the Gridiron Expert.